Hey there, it's Joshua Sohn, and today I want to go over part 2 of the MIDI Sweetening series. After watching my last video, I hope you now see how important it is to incorporate real live musicians into your production, even if it's just one musician or a few musicians into your MIDI production. Of course, there's a time and place for this, so if you are ready and you've decided to go on this journey and recording a live musician into your production, then let's go ahead and talk about that from here. So let's get started. If you have any other questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. So let's talk about the hiring process, and also let's talk about the prepping of all your materials. So the first step is to identify which instrument that you want to replace. It might be a clarinet, it could be a violin, it could be a guitar. Whatever it is that you want to replace or even just blend in with the rest of your track with, then what do you do from there? Well, we want to go ahead and look for a player. So there's got to be a way to go about this where you can find someone. So I'm just going to go over three different approaches that I found useful in my workflow. So first option would be just to look around, ask any colleagues that you know, any friends that you know that play that instrument. But if that doesn't work, then the next step is to look online. So option number 2 would be to search on Google, or there's different directory websites out there that can refer you to someone that you can email or call. And then from there, you'd reach out to see what their availability is like and their rates and so on. The third option is more convenient in a way. It's using freelance websites such as Fiverr or SoundBetter. There's also a subscription type of model like Musiversal that's out there, where you pay a monthly subscription fee and you can get however many number of recording takes per month. Each of these routes will affect the logistics of how you record this. For instance, if it's local and you know someone, you probably want to take them to a recording studio where you can give them direct feedback while they're playing, rather than wait a day or two for them to send you back an entire take that you might not like. So that's a positive or benefit for doing a more local, direct, in-person recording session. However, if you're okay with not doing that, the next best option is to do it remotely through one of those freelance websites, or if it's a direct contact to a player that specializes in remote recordings. And then all you do is you would send them your files, they would send it back, and hopefully with clear instructions that you give them, you are happy with the take that you receive. There are times when you receive multiple takes. There are times when it's just one take. That's just part of the agreement that you make with your musician ahead of time. But if you're not happy with the take that you receive, you can always ask for a revision, and that should be part of what you're paying for as well. Also, I should mention that these type of collaborations are done as a work for hire agreement. So meaning when you hire them to record, they're going to do it in a way that you pay them an upfront fee, and then you can still retain all your copyrights for the music. This is very important as a musician to keep your or maintain your copyrights. However, if you can't afford the rates that the musician is charging and you really like how they play, you can also try to arrange it in a way where they receive more percentage of ownership in exchange for less of fees, or even zero fees at some point. But that's really up to you. So once you decided what you want, then you'll just have to have this in writing somehow. Email is acceptable at times, but I prefer to write a formal contract out that spells out the terms, including the rates, the type of agreement that you have, work for hire, for instance, and then the type of service that you are exchanging. So if you have that information in contract, then that just covers you and your musician as well. Once you get that part out of the way, then the next step is to prepare all the materials for the musician to have so that they're ready to record. The essentials are the minus track, the full demo track, the isolated track, click track, a MIDI file, and sometimes the sheet music. And I say sometimes, that's if they need it as a classical musician, if they play violin, for instance. And some other times you might not need the sheet music if they are able to play it by ear. So let's break that down into each component, starting with audio files. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that in my session here. All right, and over here, what you'll see is you have a little session of Chinese traditional instruments, and the one I want to replace is the DZ, DIZI flute. Okay, so you have here these files that I already made, but just to quickly gloss over this, you can solo the instrument that you want to record. Go ahead and call it what you will, DZ only, and then export. Do that for the other ones, solo that, retitled it minus track, and then have all the files or tracks unmuted, and then just call that the full demo. Once you have all the audio files ready, then the last thing would be the click track. Click tracks are made inside of Cubase through the signature track. So if you go over here and you just render the audio click between locators, it'll actually make this automatically for you. So that's a nice little trick if you didn't know that. And you can see how that matches up with the click that normally would be playing in the background. And now I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Okay, so it's in 4/4. I have all of these tracks ready to go. You know, it wouldn't hurt to just make sure all these tracks sound the way it should. Now that you have your audio files, the next one is the MIDI file. The MIDI file is actually a really important one for several reasons. One is for them to import it back into their session if they're going to do it remotely, and then they can import it in their DAW. That'll actually include all the information like the time signature down to the tempo track, which is probably the most important part. That will line up all the notes onto the grid. So that's why we do a MIDI file. Another reason why we do a MIDI file though is actually for the sheet music. And if I go in here, you can actually see that most of this is quantized already, but some of these might be overlapping, like right here. And so if you're going to make sheet music out of this, then this actually would pose a problem. So you want to just go ahead and quantize the start notes and end notes for your entire session. So you know, for instance, let's say I had it like this. That would look weird on a notation software that's trying to read it. So you just quantize that. Do that for everything. Sometimes there might be notes that are muted like this. What I would do is I would just delete them and get rid of those. There's a lot of shortcut keys for these to mitigate some of the tediousness of all of this, but essentially that's what you would do. Sometimes also there are notes that might be triggered down below that are more for key switches. So you also want to get rid of any key switch type of notes that are not part of the actual notes that the flute player would play. All right, so once I have all of that, then you just go here to the export, and I'm going to export the MIDI file. Actually, before you do that though, make sure all of these other instruments are muted. And that's the trick. As long as the tracks that you don't want on there are muted, then the only one that will show up will be that instrument. Let's go here. I already have a file made. I'm just going to overwrite that. Right here, there's other options, so you can, you know, have the export markers checkbox on there checked, and then you can also have the locator. I would actually click that and then press OK. Okay, so now that you have the MIDI file created, the next step would be the sheet music if necessary. In order to do that, there's a few different ways to do that. I'm just going to show you two ways, as well as just a suggestion if you don't know how to create music or if your DAW doesn't. So for instance, inside of Cubase, if I go to Scores and click on that, I have the notes here already prepared and ready to go. It might not look like this though. For instance, if I were to go down, a lot of these notes have the word sus accent, so sustain accent as a little text file. So for instance, in cases like that, you'll need to just delete and highlight, delete all of these until they're all cleaned up. Another thing that you might have to do is they might be all jumbled up. And so over here, if you go into the auto layout and you just press OK, what this will do is it'll bunch all the bars together into one legible line. And you can actually do different options as well, where you can manually do 3 or 4 bars per line. It's up to you. So this is a powerful feature that you can use inside of Cubase. One other note that I'd like to make is sometimes when you have it like this, it will use the MIDI track name as the staff name for the beginning of each system. And so if you want to get rid of that and just keep it empty and clean, what you can do is you can go over to here in the projects, or was it layout? It's in the layout, and you can actually uncheck show staff names, apply that, and that will go away as well. So yeah, if you, as long as you can clean it up and show all the notes that you have. I just noticed that there's an overlap right here. And just make sure it's legible and get rid of any overlap, then you should be good. Let me just double check here. This is measure 4, 5, 6. So let's go to measure 6 here. And you'll see there's an overlap. So that's why you want to double check before you render it. And now it should be pretty clean. There are times where you might see this, something weird like this with 16th note followed by 16th rest. All of that can be mitigated if you take some time and learn how that works inside of Cubase. Again, if you don't have Cubase, there might be another way to do that in your DAW. The other option though is to get a different notation software such as Sibelius, Finale, or Dorico. I prefer Dorico. So what you would do in that case is with that MIDI file you made, you're going to click and drag that over to Dorico. So let me show you how that would work. Okay, so I have Dorico loaded up here, and with that MIDI file, I'm just going to go ahead and import it in. You can actually click and drag. I was about to do that, but I might just show you a more formal way of doing that. So you go here, find that file. There's some options. Generally, you can just press OK and ignore what this is saying. Yeah, let's just import that. It might come out a little bit funky at first, as you see here. So I see actually 2 pages. In Dorico, there's a thing called flow. So what I'm going to do is just delete this flow, and that'll get rid of the that little tacit thing that was showing up there. Okay, so the next thing is let's go ahead and change this title to whatever you want. I'm going to call it the Far East Asian Q composer. Why not? I'll just put my name in there and apply. Okay, and now as you see, the tempo is showing up correctly as 100 beats per minute. Okay, and then everything else looks pretty good. If you want to get rid of this, you're only seeing that because I'm in full score, so you can actually change this to the regular part mode or part view. And let me just get rid of this flow as well. I don't need that. Okay, so now it's not funky anymore. I have all the notes showing accordingly. I do have this weird overlap, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this first note by going like that. There we go. And then you just go ahead and scan through all your notes and rest, make sure they make sense. Okay, after that, you can do a little playthrough. You can press play. Okay, and then the other thing is I prefer Dorico because you can do a lot more inside of this in terms of dynamics. You can put a lot of different notes. So for instance, I can go MF, and then if let's say I wanted to also add a crescendo, I'm gonna do like that. So I can put a lot more information and instructions that's built into the sheet music for the sight reader or the musician to play over. Cubase's feature, our score editor, can do a lot as well, but I'm just not as familiar. So do what's comfortable for you. If it's not Dorico, you know, it's probably Sibelius. If it's not Sibelius, it might be MuseScore. Anyways, there are other options out there, including there's services that are provided from others that can do this for you if you don't want to do this step. If you know someone or if you have a friend or orchestrator friend that can do this for you, that's another option. Either way, you'll still need to make a physical PDF file. All right, so I have my sheet music ready to go. You know, it's not all marked up, but this is just an example. So I'll go ahead and print that out. So let's make sure it's not the full score, but the part that you are printing. That way it looks a little bit more clean, and then export it. This will create a PDF file inside of Dorico. And then I'll just go ahead and open that up and show you what that looks like. All right, so that's what it'll look like. Great, so that's the PDF file. Those are your 5 or 6 files that you need to send over to your musician. So that's pretty much it for getting all your materials prepared. One other additional step that I should mention or have you consider is if you are booking a studio with a recording engineer, it's really nice to also put some of those audio files that I talked about in the past and put that into a Pro Tools session. Most recording sessions or recording studios that I've been to exclusively use Pro Tools, so most likely you'll have to put it into a Pro Tools session, drop it in there manually, or they can do it themselves for you if you give them the MIDI file. But it might save you some time, and it's nice to actually do it that way if you also have a Pro Tools software already installed. With that note, that's it. You're now ready to send all the materials out to the musician or the recording studio. And then from there, the next step would be to edit and mix down your takes back into your session. So that's where we'll leave off today and pick up for next time. If you found this video to be helpful, press that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so you can see when that next video will be arriving. Alright, I'm Joshua Sohn. I'll see you next time. Hey, what's up guys? Josh. On today's series, hey there, it's Josh, and I gotta move this too. Go online. Let's try this again.